Hey, Jim.
What's up, Georgia? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing very well. We've just been chatting in the chat box. I suppose that's where you chat about whether training at home is fun. And it looks like for the majority of the people on this call, they think training is fun, but it's kind of a hit or miss, yes or no, as to whether their clients think training is fun.
Oh man, okay. We could go in so many different angles with that, and which I know this entire webinar is about. But let me ask you guys as coaches this question, and just put an answer in the chat box. Make sure that you list all panelists and attendees, with the blue drop down in the chat box as well. But why do you think training at home is fun? And this is you, not your clients. Outside. Renato, love your honesty. Controls the music, love that. Cool. Does anybody think that it's quote unquote fun just because that's your only option right now? Now we're going. Now we're rolling. Cool. Less commute time. Great one.
I love that part. That's for sure.
Yep. My only option. Awesome. Okay. Next question. For whether you think your clients like or don't like training at home, why do you think they like or don't like training at home? And try to give us a little bit of context as to, it's like, just put like training at home dash and then the reason, or don't like training at home dash the reason. Miss the equipment, not as social, miss community, camaraderie, limited equipment. Don't like. Jenna, thank you for actually following that. Oh man, it's hard to keep up with all of them. Volky, what's up, dude? Like training at home. Brandon, I can't read faster, my friend. But I did see your all caps. That was helpful. Okay.
Guys, this stuff definitely gives us some good inspiration for the topic today and for what we're going to think about with our answers. But I do have Jim, Carl, and James here to talk about how to make training at home fun. And the how-to is definitely going to be part of this conversation, but it really wouldn't be an OPEX webinar if we didn't start with a bit of a discussion on whether or not training should be fun. And I'll be excited to see what Jim, Carl, and James have to say on that. And I also look forward to having your answers in the chat box. So as I ask questions to these guys, I would ask you, listen in, but also let us know in the chat box what you think about these questions. Guys, do make sure that as you are typing to us, you are set to all panelists and attendees and not just all panelists, because that's going to make sure everyone can see what you're letting us know. So without further ado, we are going to get right into the first question today, and that is, should exercise be fun? And I'm actually going to call James in first to answer this one for us from his lens.
Yeah, I guess it should be. Should's a big word, but I guess it should be fun. It doesn't always have to be fun. Some of the biggest physical moments in my life weren't that enjoyable at the time, but I learned a whole lot of things. And sometimes, even listening to some research this morning from David Epstein on learning, is that even for this younger population that didn't enjoy a lot of the learning, when they looked at them for years and years down the road, they actually had higher competency in that skill. So think about that. It doesn't mean that it has to be fun. And of course, want to err on the side of saying it's not fun also, right? Because then it's like, well, it looks like a chore. But that's why I always back up to say most things are always aligned correctly and they're enjoyable after the alignment is correct. So if the alignment is correct, i.e. people are doing things, especially physical training and physical expression, let's call it, and I'll just leave it with short language, the right reason, then it's generally enjoyable. I think a more interesting way to ask the question, George, and I'll stop then, is not only should exercise be fun, but maybe how should we approach what exercise is as a lead-in question before that? Because if we approach it that way, and we were to put this, butterflies and rainbows context around movement as just being like this enjoyable overcoming of movement solutions and challenges, do you see how can it not be fun? But because our entire genetic lineage and billions of people think of exercise as being a fix for a shitty lifestyle, it's tough to impede a new behavior on top of that, and to raise everyone up to make it fun doesn't make it wrong for us to do that, but we do have to know why we're trying to make it that language, if that makes sense. And I'll stop there in my perspective.
Thank you for that, James. And I know you are going to get a little bit deeper into the intention around exercise later on. And Carl is also going to be talking about the alignment and the connection of the client with their program design. So we will certainly get to that deeper topic. I'm going to now invite Carl in. Carl, let us know, should exercise be fun from your perspective?
Oh, man. Yeah, I look at lens, right? Because sometimes I drive down the street, especially here in Arizona, and I see, pre-COVID, you see golf courses just jam-packed. And I'm like, that looks brutal. Like, that doesn't look fun to me at all, right? But the people that are on that course playing golf are having the time of their lives, right? So looking at someone's lens and what fun actually means is really important, right? So, I'll kind of break it down, or I'll put it into 3 different areas where I think people can at least get enjoyment out of it, right? So it's like, we always hear the enjoy the process, right? Enjoy the process of training, enjoy the process of getting better. But what if someone's outcomes or their goals aren't actually connected to a process and getting them there, and there's no endpoint, right? So if you have someone that's ultra competitive in anything and they're training to go and compete at that thing, they may find fun in the outcome, but not necessarily the process of exercising, right? So it's like they wake up at 4:00 in the morning, they get on their bike and they go for a 50-mile ride, right? And then they go home, they eat, and then they go for a 15-mile run. It's like they may not actually have fun doing that, but they're enjoying the process. So it's like, when they get to that Sunday morning and they're going and they're hitting their triathlon, that's fun to them, right? Or winning that thing is really fun. So, I would look at it as like, there are some people that really enjoy the process of getting them to their outcome and using exercise to do that. There's other people that enjoy the progress, right? It's like we all have clients where it's like, my main goal is I want to lose 5% of body fat because I want to look this certain way, right? And they're looking in the mirror every Sunday or Monday, and they're like taking pictures of themselves and they're sending them to you. And they're enjoying the progress that they're seeing in exercise, but they're not actually connected to the A's, B's, and C's inside of that exercise program, right? And then we have people that just don't enjoy the feeling of exercise. So when they're actually in the gym or in their garage or whatever they're exercising and they're in the A, B's, and C's, that's what they live for. They're like, man, I really enjoy doing this aerobic work. I really enjoy the challenge of trying to keep this work sustainable. I really enjoy the challenge of trying to back squat 400 pounds. It's like those people actually enjoy exercising. So I think we have to identify which bucket our clients fall into and then use that, right? It's like if someone enjoys the process, it's like keep them connected to the outcome. If someone enjoys the feeling, keep them connected to the A, B's, and C's. So I know that's kind of, it depends, but I think it depends on where our clients sit and what they see as fun.
There is nothing wrong with an it depends answer, Carl. We're all about that here. And guys, finally, I'm going to bring Jim in to answer, should exercise be fun?
Yes. Now,
anything else to add?
I wanted to have a long dramatic pause just so that I could have the shortest answer on record for OPEX. But once that's said, every single thing that James and Carl just said, I think makes all the difference in the world. So it depends on the lens, it depends on the perception, and then it depends on how you connect the client or yourself to those intentions. But I do think if particularly if we're looking at it from coaching as a source of income, etc., as people connect to an enjoyment of doing fitness, they stay longer.
Sorry, Georgia, I don't even know if I gave you a yes or no, but yes, it's important for fitness to be fun, for exercise to be fun.
We always go straight to the long answer. We never give the short one here. So guys, I think that's a really good place with some ideas, really good place to start to get some ideas going around should exercise be fun. And guys, if you have anything else to add, please feel free to throw it in the chat box. We are going to move on now to question number 2, and that is what makes exercise fun? So let's go back to James. James, what makes exercise fun for you?
Definitely the learning aspect. But again, this has to go back to each individual person's perception of physical expression and exercise and the whole landscape. I find also teaching others to make it makes it enjoyable. So my mentors today are my students, and as I teach them, I learn more, and so that's fun. So exercise for me, still at almost my 10,000th iteration of that exercise session, it's still enjoyable. You know, like I've probably done 647 different versions of easy aerobic work with 3 different modalities like I did this morning. Is that like a chore? Definitely not. It's on the other side of the continuum, because it allows me to learn little things around the 647th time of doing rowing after you run on a treadmill. There's some learning in that at my current state, at my current age, at my current ability. So that's the way I would frame it for what makes exercise fun for me. Teaching other people can inspire it to be fun for me, and also learning if it's inside of it, if there's some learning involved inside of it.
Thanks, James. I'll throw it to Carl now. What makes exercise fun for you?
Yeah, I'm going to give my answer, but I'm going to give context to what used to make exercise fun to me 10 years ago. 10 years ago, just to give you where my lens was, it was, you know, I was playing football, and then I was going into the military, and then I was competing in fitness, right? So it's like I was connected to the challenge, I was connected to the process, and I was connected to the outcomes of the challenge and the process. Right? Where today I'm connected to the feeling of exercise. I actually don't like to be overly challenged in exercise these days because it doesn't make me feel that good. And I'm connected to the learning aspect in exercise, because every single day that I go outside and I exercise in my backyard, I do learn something new, right? Like yesterday I learned, holy shit, I don't know if I enjoy exercising when it's 105 outside. Right. Or, you know, the other day I was thinking of James in my ear when he told me probably 3 years ago, you know, how being in Arizona is different and it's harder to breathe here because the air is so dry. Right. And I was like using that as an excuse while I was doing like easier aerobic work. So yeah, exercise is fun to me because of the feeling that I get and the learning that comes from it. And kind of testing out some things that I've given other people and seeing how that makes me feel and what my lens is on that. So yeah, I think progress and progression is always something that I will always be connected to, but not as much as I was 10 years ago.
Seems like there's definitely a common thread between both of your answers around the learning process through exercise. And through the lens of a coach, I definitely find exercise fun because of what you said, Carl. It makes me feel like I've experienced the things that I am going to give to my clients, and just get a lot of satisfaction out of that and being able to serve them better. So finally, Jim, what makes exercise fun for you?
I used to think it was competition, but I realized it was 97.5% learning for me. And I think it continues to remain that for me today. So I don't connect as much to it on individual movements per se or individual workouts. I connect to it as to how is this helping me learn something interesting about myself, or the type of fitness that I'm doing, or what it takes to complete or compete or whatever. That's always just connected with me a lot more. And actually, like, if I think of the definition of fun, what is it? Something like enjoyment, amusement, whatever, if that's the definition, that's when I'm enjoying the process the most, is when I have a pretty clear goal in mind. That's not necessarily difficult to achieve, but something that I can wrap my head around. I need to do these things to move forward.
Jim, can I ask, what's one thing you've learned about yourself through exercise?
I'm a lot more aerobic, but on a slightly different context. I've learned that I really don't do anything fitness-wise for other people. So I've certainly done a lot of things over the years where, I'm trying to work on projects or blah, blah, blah for other folks. Fitness has always been, I will just stop doing fitness if somebody is trying to inject something on me because I don't like it. So that's been very, very black and white learning for me over the years, is I do what I want when it comes to exercise.
Thanks for sharing that. So guys, we will wrap up that question there, and we're going to move on to the how-to piece. And I am going to call James in first to have a discussion around what he alluded to earlier, which is intention and exercise.
Yeah, I definitely won't be able to give you a how-to make training at home fun. I will certainly, though, at least make people ask questions on the overarching reason why we're here today. Is I would just want everyone to get inspired on keep asking the question on our awareness for the fact that we're trying to make exercise fun. And if you just stay with that for a while with your thoughts and sit back and think about that, it's actually a little bit comical that we're actually trying to make exercise fun or trying to come up with ways to make exercise fun. And I think that's where you need to go prior to you trying to figure out what is fun with exercise. If anything I could add to it as a coach's lens, try to remember that every human out there who's experiencing physical challenges has a completely different lens than you do as a coach. And so they all see things differently, right? And then put a little bit of a biological construct over who that person is. Meaning, if someone's 17 today, they're going to see fitness differently. If someone is 35 today, years of age, they're going to see fitness differently. You get what I'm saying? Someone's 62 today, they're going to see fitness differently. And then, deeper down underneath that, I would say, take lots of time to try to figure out that whole answer to the question of why are you actually doing any exercise first, and come to some fundamental agreements between the coach and the client as to why we're doing it at that current time. And then it should be no problem, to be honest, to get to the point of making it enjoyable, because it's with a base support of having correct intentions, right? Of figuring out challenges, trying to get to this goal, etc. That becomes enjoyable. So I would just say, take lots of time for the awareness question before you get to how to.
James, why do you think so many people are trying to make fitness entertainment?
Because there's no reason to exercise. There's no fundamental human reason to exercise.
Can you dig into that?
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't just think hard about it. You don't need to do exercise. Like, where is that answer? If you provide evidence like, oh, you got to exercise to win at a sport. Okay, well, what are 7.9 billion people doing? If your answer is, well, you got to exercise to not get fat, that's also not a good reason to do your exercise. You just simply take away the issue that's causing you to get fat. So we used to need to do physical movement and physical challenges, but that's the real answer. It's deep inside of our DNA and our genetic lineage now for generations that movement and physical challenges are folly. It's a diversion, really. And so why is it so hard to create good intentions around exercise and making it fun? Is that people actually have it deep in their code that it's to fix a shitty lifestyle or to do it for a separate reason. And so how do you get someone to just come into your gym or teach them about physical expression? And they're like, so why are we doing this? Why are we doing it? You're just like, I don't know. You just, because you can and because it's for you. That's not that sexy to sell that answer, you know? So that's it.
Thank you, James. And we are going to move on to Jim now. Jim, I know you're going to speak a little bit about the responsibility of the coach in leading the client. Do you mind starting there and how that relates to making training fun?
Yeah, and keep in mind, my context is going to be more 30,000 feet, you know, in terms of what a coach in the context of a gym needs to think about. So I'm not going to try to go into Carl and James's world on connecting the client specifically. I'm just going to say that you need to do these pieces for the gym to function effectively and to set the right expectations. And there'll be a couple of slides, guys, so don't worry about all the specific stuff on the slides. The big thing for me is you have to make sure that what you set as an expectation for your clients and your coaches consistently gets done. So you need to know that your clients will respond the most to you, i.e. the coach on the floor. So if you're in an environment where you don't look like you're enjoying it, or you don't look like you give a shit about your clients, they will respond and feel like that's what's really happening. So let's enter the example of a coach is on their cell phone 24/7 on the floor. That's clearly not projecting out a fun environment for the people who are supposed to be enjoying themselves. So you have to be consistent with projecting out confidence, interest, intrigue. I'm not saying that you have to cheerlead people. I'm saying that you have to be interested in the session that you're coaching. I don't care what model you're in. You know, when it gets really, really boring, it's your fault as the coach. It's not the client's fault, right? You control the energy on the floor, not them. And I get that they're a big part of it, but if you're dragging, they will drag. At least there's a higher probability of that. So you have to put in, you have to know what exact client experience you want. And once you know what that client experience needs to look like, and that's dependent on each model, right? In an OPEX gym, we don't want it to be dramatic and, you know, like a Las Vegas rave. You know, that's not the type of environment we want. But we do want the coach to be highly engaged and interested in each of the clients on the floor for their own unique version of what's making fitness fun for them. Okay. Once you have that in place, then you need to actually create systems to ensure that that happens. Okay, so just like we would say strategy, execution, measurement, refinement, your strategy is the blueprint or it's the exact client experience you want. Your execution then has to be, I need to teach my coaches and myself how to deliver this environment 100 times out of 100. And then you have to manage that environment very, very well. If you don't set the expectations, if you don't train your coaches, if you don't role play with your coaches, and if you don't watch the experience that your coaches give to their clients, not all the time, but here and there, ultimately it will start to sway out and diverge from what you believe the floor experience needs to look like. Okay, that's a really important part, especially when we start talking about doing stuff online. Okay, you need to know what the experience needs to look like in terms of what you're defining and also what you're defining with your coaches and clients is fun. Okay, it's usually when, but let's go back to the question George asked about James in terms of, you know, James answered on kind of marketing and not sexy or whatever. If you market sexy, 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 and then your environment is boring, they're not going to stay. You need to market in a way that when they get into the facility, they're experiencing what you marketed to them. Okay, it's really, really important. Okay, Georgia, keep going. When you think about how you connect the client to that, obviously we believe in the one-to-one model, so that's what we're going to push. You have to get under the client's skin. And what I mean is that you have to have conversations with them to ask them what they find fun about this. But you first have to ask them what they define fun as. Just like James would always say, you have to define success. how in the world are you going to deliver fun if you don't have your own definition and if your clients don't have a definition of what fun is? Right? So this slide, for example, the parkour example, it's like, I don't want to deliver parkour to my clients every day because I'd look foolish. That's a big reason. But somebody might create an epically fun environment for their clients, whether it's based on progress or just enjoyment of doing the act in that type of a model. So any model can be fun. It's about what you deliver, how you deliver it, and the expectations that you set up.
So Jim, to bring it to what's happening right now, which is people training at home, what kind of fitness models, what kind of ways of delivering fitness are conducive to being fun in an at-home setting?
I think, and you can see it on some of the text on this slide, but the models that have had to move the farthest away from what they delivered in person are probably having the hardest time making people perceive the online experience as fun. So let's take two different examples. OPEX Gym. I have my own personalized program. I'm doing that. Yes, I'm having conversations with people, but when I went home, I still have a personalized program. I still have access to my coach. I'm doing what I need to do to move forward in and out of the gym maybe being your garage or your apartment or whatever. That's not a huge change. But go to a group training facility that needs a lot of equipment on a daily basis, and that's maybe high intensity, that's really built up around the group. That's difficult to put online. It's difficult. So you're probably going to have to sway farther away from the original intent of what that model was. It's unfortunate that that has happened, right? This is a 3 standard deviation event that's happening in the world right now. So this is not normal at all, but that is going to be harder to transfer online because people don't have enough equipment. They might not have enough space, and they clearly don't have direct camaraderie and connection of that level of fun. So if you need to transition online, you're going to have one-to-one conversations. Even if you've got a big gym of group training people, you're going to have to change that, not change, but ask about their perception around fun. And you are going to have to make a small change in that perception if you want them to stick around for longer. Okay? That's really, really important right now because they want to do what they signed up for. And if you change that, the value proposition has just left. And again, it's not your fault. It's just that's what's happening. And so you need to pivot effectively based off of knowing that you're not delivering what you set the expectations as.
Jim, I think that gives us some really good stuff to think about from a more global perspective around fitness being fun. And I'm now going to bring Carl in to get a little bit more specific on the coach and the client and how the coach can help the client have more fun at home. And that's really going to be through the lens of connecting your clients to that program. And before Carl comes in, what I would love you guys to do in the chat box is let us know, what are you doing tangibly right now to connect your clients to their program? Fire us off a quick response, and Carl is going to come in and give his 2 cents on that too.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Georgia. Yeah, as you guys put those responses into the chat box, I'll just roll through a couple points and some things that I would want you guys to think about. If you think that your clients, like if it's a big issue, if you feel it's a big issue with your client load, that they're not enjoying training and they need to be entertained, I would take a step back and look in the mirror and look at what you're conveying. And Jim hit it, right? He's like, if you're saying that you're an uber fun environment and I go to your gym and I'm like, this is boring as hell. It's like, you have to practice what you preach, right? So look in the mirror and what are you conveying to your clients where they feel like they have to be entertained? Are you actually setting the expectation up initially that this is all butterflies and rainbows and this has to be like the funnest thing that they're going to do, the funnest hour in their day, every single day that they come into your gym or every day they pull up True Coach? So just think about those things and look in the mirror and look at what you're doing. we also have to understand that compliance is king, right? It's like if our clients are not executing the programs that we're designing for them, they're not going to get anywhere, and eventually we're going to lose them, right? So look at your clients' compliance across the board. If you pull up True Coach and you see a lot of reds and you see a lot of 20, 30, 40% in your client list, what are you doing? Because we're doing something. We're either bringing in the wrong clients or we're not connecting them to why they're doing what we're prescribing them to do. So it's extremely important to connect your clients to their training program. Just really quick, guys, I just want to take a quick read through what you guys are putting here. Weekly goals, good.
Looks like a lot of people are making an effort to communicate more often, have one-to-one calls, and really do what, you know, we've been talking about earlier too.
Definitely. Yeah, so something I would look at too, in terms of looking in the mirror, is understanding what your biases are. And those aren't biases aren't a negative thing. We all have biases, right? Like some of us are really good coaches because of our biases. Some of us let our biases get in the way and they make us less good coaches, right? So look at your biases and don't impose them 100% of the time. Rather, look at your biases as experiences and how you can take your experiences to give your clients a better program, whether that's a training program, a nutrition program, a lifestyle program, whatever your client needs, right? We always talk about what are you experiencing as a coach? Take those experiences and utilize those things. Those are extremely important. I read a great article a couple days ago that Precision Nutrition emailed out, and it was titled something like how to not fight with your kids about eating their vegetables or something like that. And something that was really important that I saw in there, something that I extrapolated out of there, was human beings just don't like to be told what to do. Like, we don't like to be ordered around, right? My 3-year-old hates when I tell him what to do, right? He wants to come to that conclusion in his own head. And if I can get him to say what he wants to do, he's going to be compliant in that, right? So we're not coaches sitting on our throne saying you're going to do this because of that and that and that and that, and I'm not even going to listen to you because I'm a professional coach and I know best. We can't have that viewpoint, right? We have to develop these things in concert, right? We have to work with our clients to develop what their plan is. We have to work with them to develop what their goals are. It's a working relationship. We're not telling our clients what to do at every turn. So that's really, really important. Do your clients feel like you're just putting a bunch of things in True Coach? Do your clients feel like you're getting on consultations with them and you're just talking at them? You're not talking with them and developing this plan together. So there's some really important things to consider. And that last point where it's like it starts and continues with why, it's so important. Like, we don't want to do things unless we have a reason to do them, right? I'm not going to start a project after we get off this call if I have zero reason to do it. I have to understand why I have to do that or why that's beneficial. Even if it's not the most intriguing thing for me to do, if I understand the why behind it, I'm more likely to do it.
So Carl, let's now get on to the how to connect your clients to their programs and ultimately, hopefully, make training at home a little more fun for them.
Yeah, so I think it's more because you guys are putting some great things in the chat box, right? Where you guys are kind of walking through more specific things that you're executing on with your clients to connect them more to their training program. But I think it's an important principle to understand that we don't like to be told what to do. And we actually don't know everything. We don't know everything, right? So if we work with our clients to develop these plans, or we work with our clients to develop these programs, they're more likely to enjoy them and have fun doing them. So looking at how to actually do that and what situations do we have the opportunity to do that? And the individual design model, we have a lot of opportunities to do it. We do it in the initial consultation, right? That's where connection occurs. That's where we ask engaging questions. That's when we sit back and we listen to what our clients are telling us. We have an opportunity to connect our clients to their program on a daily basis inside of the program itself. It can't be it can't be overlooked how powerful language and writing a program design can actually be for a client that's reading that program design. For example, look at part A, push-ups, as many reps as possible times 4 sets, rest 2 minutes, versus push-ups, as many reps as possible times 4 sets, rest 2 minutes, asterisk. Remember, we talked about this on our consultation. I want blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? There's connection that's occurring inside of that program design. And it takes you 10 seconds to write that little piece that connects them a little bit more to why they're doing an AMRAP set of push-ups. So there's a lot of opportunities to connect our clients to the training program or to whatever the plan is, the initial consult being one, and in True Coach inside of the program being another really easy one. And then an ongoing basis, we should be having conversations consistently with our clients, whether that's commenting back and forth in True Coach or whatever you guys are using, whether that's sitting down in monthly consults, whether that's when we're back into the gyms, the clients walking in and you're asking them, hey, what do you have today? You know, and you give them some context as to, okay, I really want you to, as you warm up, I really want you to focus on this. I really want you to pay special attention to this when you're doing split squats today, because that's why I'm prescribing those to you. Like those little things just connects the client a little bit more to their training program, and consistently reassess what you're doing and if it worked or if it didn't work. And I know we've talked about this a few times, but it's like, we can't be scared to reassess clients and be open and honest and say, hey, you know, this was the goal. We actually didn't accomplish that goal, but this is what I'm going to do to shift the program to get us closer to that thing this training cycle, right? Or, yeah, we nailed that, right? Like this was what we set out to do. We did it, and now we're moving on to the next thing. So that connection is just so, so important. And there's a lot of opportunities to connect. And it doesn't take a lot of time. Sometimes it takes 10 to 15 seconds of you putting something into True Coach that just connects your client a little bit better to their training program.
Thanks for that, Carl. And guys, we will get into some Q&A. So if anyone has any specific questions around program design, coaching, the business side of how to make the training experience more fun and more connected for your clients, please start getting those questions in there. And just to wrap up, James began, he told us about, you know, the need to really discuss and consider the intention of exercise. Jim hit on making sure that you as the coach or the gym owner, you're setting the standard and you're making really clear expectations for your clients. And then Carl hit on the connectedness that needs to happen between the client, the coach, and then the program design. So guys, we will roll into Q&A, and it looks like we have some questions coming. I do see that Gabriel has asked, how about coaches that love coaching, that are great at it, people love the class, but he himself is not willing to work out? A coach that doesn't work out. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think we have judgments, or I have judgments on that. I don't know if I have an answer to that question. You know, I'll always go down saying that a coach should do exercise and do exercise consistently. That doesn't mean exercise 7 days a week, two times a day. But I think as coaches, we have to practice what we preach. I don't know his exact circumstances, so I don't want to get into that situation. But overall, I do think a coach should practice what they preach.
Thanks, Carl. So guys, we did also have a question from Renato, whose clients have been compliant and they're sticking to the program, but they are feeling the lack of access to equipment and like it is affecting their workouts. Anything to add there, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to. I don't think we cover that up and say, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, you know, you can have fun doing push-ups and air squats and what. I think we just get on their level and we say, yeah, I mean, you know, a couple of months ago, we were in this situation and we had a better time working out because we had more tools at our fingertips. It may not be as engaging, you know, doing body weight workouts 3 to 5 times a week for the next, who knows how much longer we're going to be doing this thing. But I think it's going back to the empathetic side and just being like, yeah, I feel you, you know what I mean? But these are some things that we need to focus on right now. And these are some things that we can control. And this is what we can do with the tools that we do have. So I think it's not coming at that with judgment. I think it's coming at that with more empathy and getting down to the level, but kind of transforming that conversation into, you know, what are some positives that can be taken from this, or just asking a question of why do you feel like you need a skier, 5 barbells, and a Lego plates to enjoy exercise? Because if the answer is it just feels good to have all of those tools, it's like, okay, I think that's another conversation. But if the answer is I don't feel like I can accomplish my goals because of the lack of those tools, I think those are two different conversations that you would have with your client.
Thanks, Carl. Ty has a great question, and I think this one might be good for Jim. Jim, you've spent a lot of time blueprinting with gyms and helping them make sure that the experience is great. So he asks, what are some things we can do to engage the client from the moment they walk in, ways to connect, build the relationship, and make it enjoyable?
I think the biggest things are making sure that you see the client, right? Like, you don't have to be overly friendly, you don't have to be overly dramatic, but you need to acknowledge that they're there, and you need to show some level of interest in what they're doing. So for example, in an OPEX gym, every single time somebody walks through the door, we want the coach to greet the first person by name. What would be an extra step towards that? And by the way, I'm assuming that the coach on the floor isn't directly engaged in coaching somebody, where it's actually, I don't want to say incorrect, but maybe not as responsible to leave that client, right? But if somebody is coaching normally on the floor, a second step to that could be simply to ask them a question about the day, or ask them a question about what they're working on today, and that obviously is unique to the individual that the coach is speaking to, but it is acknowledging that they're in the gym, they are going to enjoy the training session, and that client knows that they're going to be taken care of. So I know it's not directly fun related, but when the client walks in and feels comfortable and supported, they're going to be more likely to enjoy the session as compared to walking into, an empty gym or what have you. That's just from a lot of experience that we've seen with clients. Like, especially if you're selling a coaching program, they want to be coached. And I'm not saying every movement, that's a ridiculous expectation, but you need to connect with them when they're in the gym.
Thanks, Jim. Guys, anything else to add there?
Nope, good with that. That was good, Jim.
Perfect. So Brandon has asked that he feels like his biases can often keep his programming very mathematical in its progression from week to week. Some people love it, some people don't quite enjoy it. He's trying to learn and show more creativity for those people who feel as though they need and enjoy it. Any thoughts on practicing this and creativity in program design?
Yeah, I think it's a balance of, sticking to your principles as a coach, and also, being, agile in terms of who your client is and what they need and what they're going to be compliant to. So to just go back to the connection point, Brandon, I think, that should just be a really honest conversation up front. And what we love to ask clients is, what do you enjoy doing in the gym? What do you not enjoy doing in the gym? And those are two questions that I really enjoy asking, because you can get a lot out of those things, right? So if someone says, I really hate doing the same thing week over week, like, dig into that, right? It's like, okay, what do you think fitness should look like? Why do you think, why do you think some coaches give, linear programs where they're doing the same movement week over week over week? And if you can connect them to, hey, I'm giving you a squat week over week, and I'm progressing it using this method, put that method there, whatever that method is that you're using, because of this reason that we noticed in your assessment. You know what I mean? Like, there may be better connection to them doing squats every Monday for the next 8 weeks, right? So I think it's all in the connection point, and understanding what your client enjoys doing, what do they not enjoy doing, and connecting them to what they have to do based on what you're seeing in their assessment, or what you're seeing based on, or what you need to do based on their goals or the outcomes that they desire. So yeah, I just go back to connection. I don't think it's the answer definitely isn't sit behind your computer and figure out a way to be more creative, because I think that's just going to be this. And you're going to take 30 minutes to design a program for someone because you need it to be new and nuanced every single week.
Thanks, Carl. Guys, Tim had asked a question around how to help clients avoid overuse injuries of body weight patterns with their limitations with equipment right now. And Tim, I did throw a link in the chat box to a free guide that we did put out on body weight only program design. But I'll ask James. James, do you have any key points you could put into around avoiding overuse injuries for body weight exercises?
Yeah, just track and measure what they're doing. And also ensure you have a balanced approach in all the primal patterns and movements that people can do and what they have access to. And that guide should give you some good direction on it, because it'll talk about, what are unnatural movements in those categories. And just keep asking the question, how is it possible that people are getting injured through exercise? Just keep asking that question.
Guys, we do have time for a few more questions. So if there's anything else you guys would like to add, please throw it in the chat box for us and we can get to that. Meanwhile, I'm going to ask Carl a quick question. Carl, what do you do if your client tells you that they dislike an exercise, but they can't give you any more than that?
That's such a loaded question. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's a right answer to that, Georgia. I think it's just trying to get to a resolution through conversation. I can't think of a time where someone has told me I don't like doing this and they had zero context behind it. Usually it's, something to do with the way it makes them feel. They're not good at it. Their lack of recovery from it, whatever that is. But I think each one of those answers would take you into a different conversation or kind of veer the conversation differently. But yeah, I would definitely dig a little bit deeper into why they don't, right? And in your brain, it's like, okay, was that answer valid or was that answer not valid? If that answer is valid, then you talk about what we can do to replace that to get the exact same or a very similar response that we're trying to get in that exercise. If it wasn't valid, it's like, I think we have to stand our ground as coaches, because if we don't, we're going to get that shit all the time. And it's like, I see Monday through Thursday, I don't really like that. Can you change that for me? So I think we definitely do have to have, further conversation there, while standing our ground without being so stoic where we're just like, nope, this is it. This is the program. So I hate to say it, Georgia, but it definitely depends on the situation.
Thank you. The only client I really go through with that with is my husband. Everyone else is pretty cool. So guys, we do have a few more questions.
I could just see you telling Jacob, I don't even think you would say anything. I think you just give him a look and just keep True Coach the same.
You know me very well. Guys, another quick question that came in from Gabriel, and I will ask Jim to answer this one. So if the gym owner is a businessman that doesn't like to work out and doesn't believe in the philosophy of the gym, whether that's CrossFit or OPEX, any insight on what to do there?
This might be a little bit divergent thought, but I would ask why you work there. And that's not an easy question because I don't know the context of the situation. Maybe it's the only gym. Maybe he pays well, he or she pays well. But at the end of the day, the owner does control the business. And if they don't want to do those things, they control the business. So you need to control what you can control. And certainly I think you could suggest, ways that the business could be built in a slightly different way. But if they don't want to change the business, then you need to potentially ask yourself, is there a better place for you to exist as a coach? And that's a tough one to try and answer with zero context around it, because it's a big ask, you know what I mean? But you need to think about what you can actually make changes in. And if you've gone down the rabbit hole in as many different places as you can think to try and make change and it doesn't happen, then it might be time to move on, or you need to figure out how you are okay with that current situation and just coach. stay in the facility.
I think that's a fair answer, Jim. So next question is from Ty, and he asks, do you have any go-to questions that you'll ask to help the client connect to why they're doing what they're doing? And I mean, we definitely teach that inside of CCP. Guys, James and Carl, you guys teach the priority questions. So maybe you could give a little insight into those and how you use them.
Yeah, you can ask them about their day. Actions and behaviors and what people are actually doing is the best form of reality, and a check into how successful people will be at whatever goal they have that they're proposing. So that takes conversation, it takes systems, but asking about their full day and like really being attentive and super interested in that. And then you can extract what seemingly is important based on how they're expressing what they do in their day. Also, what goals have they set before that showed signs of coming true? That's a really key one. Not to sound, more pessimist on it, but this is where a lot of coaches actually do it incorrectly and they bypass this one. And this is probably secondarily, besides the day, the most important question, because a lot of people propose to have a goal to figure out what they want to do and their why. Yet when you ask someone what they have done that would show they're going to have success, they give you no indication through that story that they're going to have success. Now, this is an okay problem to have, but it's a big reality. And how to massage that, that's through conversation, right? Of them recognizing that they didn't put the pieces together to create the positive goal in the future, et cetera. So that's what I would say as two options.
Thanks, James. We have a question from Francis who asks, during consultation, what would be a good example of good communication when giving a BLG prescription and not sounding like they're telling the client what to do? And Carl, I'll ask you that because that relates to your first slide.
Yeah, I think it's simply just being upfront as to why you're giving it to them, right? For example, if we're in a consult and something that we want to, add into the prescription is an additional 30 minutes of daily movement outside of the gym per day, by us simply telling our clients why we're prescribing that, gives them context, right? So it's like, I'm prescribing you 30 minutes of movement per day outside of the gym because I want to, move some blood. I want to use it as a de-stressing mechanism. I want you to leave your phone in the office because what you just told me was that you get super overwhelmed and you feel like you have zero breaks during the day. So just by telling them exactly why you're prescribing it to them actually answers that question. And that's why I think connection is so good and it's so easy, right? Because we're not coming up with new things. We're just telling our clients why we're giving them what we're giving them, right? So that's why that connection point is really important.
Thanks, Carl. From Darrell, how do you go about personal training more than one person at the same time? For example, couples or friends. He's trying to cater for the fact that their limitations are different and also give them the same amount of attention. And this ties really nicely into how an OPEX gym operates, don't you think, Carl?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was going to say that's exactly what we do in OPEX gym. So I think the easy answer is, I think that came from Darrell, correct? Yep. Easy answer there, Darrell, is just to give them what they're capable of doing, and you won't have to, let's call it like babysit them through their exercise session, right? So if you have 5 personal training clients and they all have their own program and you design that program based on what their limitations are, they really shouldn't need to walk them through every rep of every set of every exercise. So I think actually what you're prescribing them in exercise is going to set you up for being able to coach more of those people in a PT setting.
I did just throw in a link there, Darrell, to CCP, which is our coaching certificate program, which is how we teach the OPEX method. And these 3 guys are all instructors for that course. So if you are interested in learning more about how we do personal training with many people, that would be a good place to start. So what else has rolled in? Sean had asked about whether he thinks whether we think small micro gyms will recover quicker than the big boys. And Jim, I see you popped some answers into the chat box there, but maybe you could expand on that.
Yeah, I don't think that it's big versus small who will survive per se. It's who has cash or who is capable of getting cash. Generally, I might say that the bigger gyms have access to more cash. So it's possible that the big gyms might remain open. However, I'm not saying that that's going to be the case across the board, and same with micro gyms. You also have to remember micro gyms, a lot of them do it for passion and not just for business. And so a lot of them might stay open longer than they quote unquote should from a business standpoint. I put in the chat box, it's also, this is dependent on the first hit. Once you start thinking about the next year or 2 years, the economics of many franchises and brick and mortar facilities looks very different than it did 2 months ago. And those economics are going to put a large constraint on people's ability to raise debt or equity if they are a bigger player. And will also make it more difficult for smaller micro gym owners to get cash. So this is going to be based on your ability to get cash. That's it.
So guys, Ty had asked a question, any closure tips for the end of the workout? Common things you do so that they always leave on a positive note. And this is absolutely something that is inside of the blueprint of the client experience for OPEX gyms, and definitely something we think about. So Jim, do you want to share on that?
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's actually, I view the OPEX gym blueprint as, I call it, down and back, basically, where you are basically mirroring the starting point and the movement through the workout on the way back, in terms of coaching, I should say. So if you start the session by welcoming somebody into the gym, you end the session by saying goodbye to them. And I know that that sounds small, guys, but I cannot tell you how many gyms miss that. One of the things that I think group training did really well is they actually said goodbye to their people. A lot of one-to-one coaches don't do that well enough, in my opinion. And so it's the same idea. It's showing an interest in the person and making sure that they are quote unquote seen. Now, you don't want to set the expectation that this is going to be some big fiasco, dramatic event. You just want to make sure that you connect with them. Yeah, to James's point, every OPEX gym is doing that.
These guys at the beginning of this webinar all talked about how they learn through fitness and how that's a big part of what makes it fun for them. And something I do like to ask my clients as they leave the gym is, what did they learn today in that hour or 90 minutes they were in the gym? So guys, we have 2 more minutes left. Let's finish with Luciano's question, and that is, what are some things to do to help your clients connect and create more awareness to their true intentions? James, could you finish us with that one, please?
To be completely honest, no, not in a minute and a half. I can't. Maybe we can do, no, just to be honest, it's such a deep answer for my brain. That's it. So I can't actually put it into words to answer it that easily.
We'll need to have a separate webinar just on that topic one day. Carl, is there anything that you would add, or Jim, anything you'd add? Quick hitter on that one.
It's a tough one. To try and be super, super brief, I'm just going to go 60,000 feet and say often it's worked the best for me to ask questions often. And I know that that's not a specific answer by any means, but that's always worked well for me.
Yeah, I think it's just to add to that really quickly in 15 seconds. I think it's continuing to dig because we have to be realistic in that our clients, a lot of them don't actually know their biggest priorities, right? Or they don't actually know what their biggest focuses are, should be, want to be, all of that. So I think just to come off of what Jim said, it's continuing to dig and ask questions so they start to think about things so they can eventually figure that out. right? Because we don't know the answers for them, and a lot of them don't know the answers, but through experience and continually asking the same types of questions, I think we can help them get there.
Thanks, Carl. Guys, we will wrap up there. We'll be back next week with a conversation on the value of coaches and how to increase that. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, guys.
See you guys. Thank you.